parking spot for the door. From the sky, there is this.
What you've done.
Yeah.
All right, you're okay.
It's 2 minutes still. Oh my goodness. This isn't working. Yep, it is with me. What? Are we still here? Should have thought about citizens and smart time. Okay, what is it? Yeah, I told you. I knew it. I knew it. And no, I did not discuss this. Oh, yeah, I lost my standing. Yeah.
Never mind.
Yeah, right.
Never mind.
Hi, Randy.
Rain started on my way. I couldn't walk 15 feet in my car. I would have an umbrella. I had nothing. Oh, it was cold. It didn't rain in here like this. I mean, I know that I've never seen rain that hard.
I know. Well, I got totally soaked and I had an umbrella. I know. I'm so.
I was getting ready to say, I was gonna do that, but Jane walked in.
So you can never keep yours. He's having a problem with in his basement. There's water around it, and so he called. Service. Yeah. It's got the foil in place. Sure. That's what I think. It's just so beautiful that he wants to check it out. Some things. Okay, we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. If you would, we'll take a moment of silence, and I'd ask that you remember Sheila Sayre and her family. She passed, and she was very active in beautifying the community, especially under Mayor Stelsberg and afterwards. Her husband died for a couple of years, and she hasn't really been able to, but she made quite a difference when she and the other volunteers were out there. And now we'll stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mayor Tim Harrison Edwards. Here. Councilwoman Sherry Rogers. Here. Councilman Randy Bowen. Councilwoman Debbie Duff. Councilwoman Kirk Curtis.
Here.
City Manager Nate Stansberry.
Present.
City Attorney Brian Bailey.
Here.
Finance Director Susan Johnson.
Here.
Chief Josh Thomas.
Here.
Chief Jimmy Settle.
Here.
Building Code Enforcement Marty Lewis.
Here.
City Street Commissioner Mike Starrett.
Here.
Sanitary Director Dee Evans. Did we list Debbie's excuse? I didn't hear it. Next, approval of minutes from the regular and special sessions. Some advance. I'll move to approve minutes. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and second to approve the minutes of the regular and special session. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next, visitor section. We don't have anyone registered to speak, so we'll move on to the cemetery board report. And you have the minutes from the last meeting in your packet. The next meeting is Monday, October the 10th at 9 a.m. But I wanted to bring to your attention that Andrea Land at Hackers Creek Pioneer Descendants will be offering a free cemetery tour on August the 12th at 8:30. And that tour will be at Macpelia. And they're asking for people who want to go on that tour, call Hackers Creek to pre-register. Next, the Historic Landmark Commission, those minutes are also in the packet. Next meeting is August the 11th at 5. Planning Commission, next meeting, September 14th at 4:30. Board of Parks and Rec, Friday, August 19th at 2 p.m. And that group is really picking up steam in their planning. So if you have extra time and you're available at 2 o'clock on those Fridays, please feel free to come. The EDA minutes are in your packet. Board of Zoning Appeals, Tuesday, August 9th. Code Appeals, Thursday, August the 18th. The next meeting of Neighborhood Watch is September the 7th at 6 p.m. But there is a picnic at Billy and Betty Brooks' house this coming Friday at 5 p.m. at their house. They'd like you to bring a covered dish and a chair. And this will also serve as the Ward 3 meeting. And we'll move on to the sanitary board report.
We have an application for Amy Darby.
Oh, I'm sorry.
When did you say the next, I'm sorry, Neighborhood Watch meeting was scheduled?
September 7th at 6 p.m.
Thank you.
Amy Darby has submitted an application for the Code of Appeals Board.
To approve.
I'll second.
Do we have that in our packet? Okay, so we have a motion from Ward 1 and a second from Ward 2 to approve. Discussion? All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Motion carries. And now we have the sanitary board.
I apologize, though. We'll be getting into your packets this one, boxes and packing and everything else kind of got my attention. And I just didn't get to Judy in time, that was my fault. But as far as the projects go, phase one, Sonegro has been down, that's the contractor for phase one, the sludge removal, it's been down at the plant they have for the last couple of weeks doing some mobilization and getting some samples and getting their committing ready. They should be able to start taking some sludge out of there sometime within the next week or two at the very most. We should see some of that disappearing real quick. Michael Incorporated has dismantled the old blower and should be arriving sometime, or at least shipped sometime this week. Arrival, they'll be able to get that installed within a week. Those things should be take some action within the next week. Phase two, not a lot going on, other than the applications have all been submitted that needed to be submitted. Region 7 took care of the initial submission there, and Bob Ray with Bethesda has been working to get his submissions in. I think the last thing that he needs to get in as far as time-wise is his PER, and that'll contain several different ways we can remove sludge, not just the drying beds that we've talked about, but several different ways that we can remove sludge, and all that'll be contained in that report, and that'll go to DEP as well. That should happen within the next couple of weeks as well. So a lot happening with those couple of projects. The guys have just been really busy, chasing some leaks along the riverbank, chasing some leaks and some pump issues that we've been having, still with the rags and still with wipes. From there, I guess No, we are having a lot of issues, not just wipes, but rags too, all over town. Just trying to tackle that as much as we can, but we do got another leak along the river, right around GSO number 5, Brandon workshop back there. Michael Incorporated is in this week, and it will be in the rain. There's a lot of rain coming. That'll take care of a lot of debris in that line. Some of it's from the building that was taken down. A lot of it came through, and when it fills up the line, it doesn't have a chance to let the flow through, which sets CSO off. But a lot of it's just over time that it's filled up. The break that burned out first. As far as in the office, I've been packing and stacking boxes, and I think we have everything ready so that Wednesday when the movers come, move the majority of everything out and get everything set up. The phone should be ready so that Monday morning we'll get it running.
Congratulations.
Hopefully, everything will be taken care of by then, if not before. And we can notify, I think, adequately. I haven't had one negative comment inside my office at all. Everybody's happy with parking issue. We've always had a lot of trouble parking on Main Street. They're, you know, they don't have that issue. If you have any questions, I'm glad to answer them. I did have the opportunity to appear, I think I sent you an email between West County Commission this past month, and that was very positive. I sent you the same report that I gave you.
I have a question about the email that we received on the grant submission for the abandoned mine project. Honestly, I'd like for somebody to explain all that paperwork to me.
Okay.
I don't know, did everyone council get that? Or?
Should have, yeah. I think all of you did.
I think there's a lot of information there, and I'd just like to be able to understand it a little bit better, if we can make that possible.
You want to do that at a council meeting? You want to do it at one of our meetings? You want to do a special meeting?
If he's available at the sanitary board meeting for the last next time, that'd be great.
Since Mark present at that meeting, I'll have him maybe give a little synopsis of that. Or I can submit to any.
I'd like to copy of it as well.
That's at 4:30. Or we could certainly do it at council if everybody wants to. That's fine.
Okay.
I think it would be good information for everyone to know the location of all of those.
There's actually been some new information that came out that Bob just sent to me today. Well, no, not today, Friday. On that, so different locations of some different lines that he had gotten and that the abandoned mines had actually sent back to him. So, there's some additional.
You didn't get that email, Nate?
No.
I'll send it to you.
We'll make sure you do.
I think Bob sent that out. So make sure.
I assumed you did because all the other messages between you and Bob were there. So okay.
I'll make sure it's-
That's all I had. Anyone
Oh.
else?
Whoa.
Hold on. The separate grant applications have to be submitted for each phase of the flood removal.
For phase 1, phase 2.
Was they able to get anything together or submit grant applications for the second?
For the phase 2.
Yeah,
Yes.
just curious.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Finance?
Yes, as today is just the first of August, I don't really have an update on July, finances yet. I can tell you that roughly, the excise and utilities that we brought in, $14,687 for the month of July. Business license, we brought in $5,882. B&O was $103,667. And the municipal fees were $163,504. We are down $11,309 from this time last year for the municipal fees alone. Right.
What was that amount?
$11,309.80. And between that and I worked on the fire department's audit for a few days there. I'm not quite done with it yet. But I'm done with what he wants. He's going to send back some more stuff. So.
I had the financial report that Susan prepared removed from the packet this evening because it needed some work and it wasn't Susie's fault. It was just the way our meeting broke tonight, so it's not why it's not in the packet. I did ask her to print off a bank statement. Currently, starting on August 1st, we had $1.15 million in the bank. General fund. We received our sales tax quarterly disbursement this past month, which was $140,000 roughly, and that was about similar to last year, but under our projection of what we're forecasting in our revenue side of the budget. So it's something to keep an eye on in the next quarter to see if we make that up. Same pattern happened last year, but we know that the economic conditions are a little bit different. And the only other thing I'll say is when we start out, we did make our ARPA transfer, so that's completed. So we received $850,000, our second allotment from the federal government there. So other than that, I think we're doing pretty well. Susie did a great job reviewing our applications or applicants for this is the finance director position. And so we've had our interviews and we've offered the position. It's been accepted by Joseph Solberg. And so he'll start, I think it was August 19th. He's ending his current position at the United Way in Taylor County. He'll be here. With that,
Hang out at Starbucks.
huh?
He's still going to hang out at Starbucks.
Not on the city's time. this time.
That's good.
I just want to make mention of the girls in this past month. July is our busiest month by far. We've had a few illnesses in the office, and we're short-staffed at certain times, but they did an incredible job between three of them, and McKenna, our temporary employee, they were Monday and Friday. All four of them worked together a lot to make sure we could keep our doors open as much as we could. And I never saw a line out the door or anything like that. They were working really hard, so just a lot of appreciation for everything they did this past month.
Any questions concerning finance? Okay, do we take the, are we changing our format for street, police, fire, building code? You have the reports in the pack, and I guess we'll just ask if there's any questions about those. Yes? Okay. What's an what is,
It's called before you dig. I didn't hear you.
March 811s or 811s? What is that?
811 is called before you dig.
Oh, okay.
We have a lot of those come in, excuse me, all the time, and we have to go out and make sure where they're digging, nothing in our area. There's the gas company and the water company, not so much other people when they're digging on their properties, but we do that also.
What's that?
Everything all around for that. We'll be talking about the 4th of July fireworks. So we did have two gentlemen and myself. We stayed with that festival over there that you can see 2 o'clock on Saturday. Or sorry, it's Saturday p.m. to 1 a.m. on Sunday. And they cleaned the place up very well. Hats off to those guys. They were great.
I have a question. On this. I know Willow Street has no parking. Water Street, so you guys, there are, there are 2 cars.
On Willow, we do have parking there. What it is, I think it's, don't quote me all the time,
It
but
says,
it's on Fridays. Because you're not allowed to park in between that time. That gives us time to mow and take care of the park. I mean, I have no problem with it as long as somebody tells us what to put up or whatever. I don't know if it's going to be. And just raining or what.
We can try to put up some kind of, or make some kind of rule about whatever days we're mowing or whatever. I don't see that being a problem.
well, there's also an issue with utilizing that. To be able to get cars in the house. We're gonna look into it.
In our current traffic code, there's a list of, like, can't park here under certain circumstances, either one catch all at the end, places that are deep, good places to park. Whatever. Under that concept, I think we could make a sign, put no parking here from 10 to 10 or something that keeps the city hall from being used as a first parking space. For lack of a better way to say it.
For 2 cars. Those are the 2 issues that we could do for 4th of July. And then they decided to do them. So what we need to do is get initially just the signs up to me.
I mean, you're meaning we actually in the parking lot.
Yeah.
Sounds or prompts.
Yes.
Yeah, look, off the top of my head, I don't know of a particular thing. Check our fingers on it, we got a meeting with the code. I can try to find something.
But overall, at the part, there is a sign that says Fridays from such and such time. To allow. them to-
We'll try to do something like that over there. Yeah, that's what we're trying to get to.
That's the other two issues, that's the special. Yeah, but I think it's just a matter of putting up the sign.
See, the issue was, I went out there and put some signs and sent them a card on Friday, I put them up. Said no parking on Saturday. I don't think, just because I go out there and slap up the signs, says no parking. I think that means I can come back and actually enforce that. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
You can't tell me what you said.
So, we don't have the authority to send you a- if there are no parking spaces.
Correct.
That's what I think we're gonna try to get to. It's, I mean, with our traffic code, and see what we need to do as far as having to read ordinance for it.
Right.
Get that there. It's like if I ever put up a sign, if it's kosher with the traffic. We don't have to go through the process.
Yeah, so there were two issues there. One is to be able to meet. Special events.
Ban long-term parking,
Oh, yeah, I like that.
or at least they can pay for a parking pass.
Yes.
So we have to contact them.
Something,
Yes.
it looks really bad.
Struggle to get your cars and they don't have to free.
I think that's what it is, those are extra cars. I think that if you charge for the space. That's definitely.
See the issue with that.
It's a good idea.
Our additional bring that long-term pass would be, we have an event or we know, what's this plan with. So.
All right, does council have any additional questions for street, police, fire, or building?
Just one question, Mike, as far as the drop-in, it's quite the shape of they in now, like if you've been back a second time to some of them that you cleaned out 6 months or a year ago, are they filling up quick or?
Well, there is, with the rain and the enough we've had, yes, there is a lot of fill up. And then we just noticed today that there was one up on High Street, and I told him to clear it out, but here, there's no drop in up there, there's just a frame. But that was put there 2 years ago, I told the guys to clean it out. It's full, but it was never a drop in with it. But we've been handling those very well. Matter of fact, the one that was down on 12th Street, just as you come off the North River, that was running through the lady's yard and on all that. And she just said, yeah, text everyone, good, thanking us for what we've done on 12th Street. But we check those quite regularly. And we are working on some of those with the paving, we're going back and reassessing those and building some of them, especially those on 6th Street. And then you all probably don't see those. You stop looking at those 4 on 6th Street, east, I think it's East 6th Street. Yeah, we work on it.
Okay, we'll move on to city attorney's report.
I guess the most specific thing is American Legal. We've been in contact with them relative to well, a couple different issues. They needed some clarification for some of my handwriting that I did with some things. And we had noticed some citations back to what we call the prior charter, meaning the one that was in existence before 2003. And we tend to think that that's not an appropriate citation to whatever charter is in our 1972 code is not the charter that is being, well, it's not the charter we think exists. The charter was passed in 2003. Lack of a better word, wipes out that old charter. Yeah, and so any citations to that prior charter is not appropriate. And that's what we're trying to figure out, what I'm trying to figure out with the lady over, I called out in Cincinnati, but the lady at American Legion. That's kind of the update on that. I mean, that's not, I mean, that's, I don't know how much time that's gonna add to it, but it's going to be more than a week. So that's what's going on the American legal side of things. Otherwise, all my stuff again is entrenched in all the discussions that we have.
Will American Legal be putting our zoning ordinance, are they incorporating that into the document?
Yeah, well, yes, that we sent it to them, and part of our big thick blue copy, they had sent the zoning ordinance was in there. And
Well, we did have two changes to that, and I don't know, it struck me today. And one has to do with signage and the Lamar lawsuit that was settled. And even on our website, we need to make sure that that language gets changed ASAP.
You have any documentation on that Lamar lawsuit?
I probably do in my emails. I'll send them.
We had a question come from the public. Well, one of them was involved in that lawsuit. Part on stipulations of it, I looked it over because I couldn't find the settlement agreement or whatnot, but I think that was during this council, was it not? So,
Put me on the end of it.
Yeah.
Very end. They just handed us the decision. That's all we can go ever involved in.
That'd be helpful for us, I think, because I can't see it from my hand.
Yeah, we've made 3 changes. One has to do with signage, the other was beekeeping, and the third one was adding coffee shop to the approved language. I'll try to dig that stuff up. And it may be in the planning commission book.
Yeah, what would say? American legal conversation. I think we're careening towards an asteroid that maybe we don't realize is out there. When we get that American legal code, we're gonna sit down and we're gonna have to pass an ordinance to adopt that code. And Terry and I maybe are not 100% clear on this, but I think 95% of the thought process is that when this code is passed, that is now the law of Weston. So anything that's contrary to that in the past, it's not included in that code, it's no longer law per se. So this is a big deal in a sense. And so I think once we've been doing this draft thing, making sure we take care of the punctuation and we've got the proper documents. So when that comes to you all, here probably in the next 2-3 months, we'll get that back. We're gonna have to sit down long and hard and go through that code and spend some time with it. Make sure we're okay with some things there. I think there's a lot. Honestly, this is gonna be, if you read Charles Jeffries for English class, this is rough draft number 2 out of 5 probably that we're gonna be in. It's in the sense of, that's what they're gonna provide to us, and we've gotta go through that kind of fine tooth comb and make sure we're happy with it. There's nothing to say if we adopt something bad, we can go back and change it, we can. But this is really our chance, and I think we're gonna, if we do it right, we're gonna have to engage the public, at least allow some comment period while we're passing those ordinances and try to make everyone understand this is now the law of Weston, right? And as we pass ordinances in the future, we'll incorporate their position in the code in that ordinance language. So we're saying we're adopting ordinance 2022-15 that is Weston City Code, chapter 25 to say, that's how we operate. So it's a big deal. We haven't had an operating code in at least 30, almost 40 years, I'd say.
It's well past time, so we'll just have to bring it here.
Right.
Won't the council go?
Looking forward to it.
City clerk. We have report in your packet on what census. Thank you. And city manager's report.
I didn't provide a paper report. I just have that time. As you all know, budget revisions, department reports, or department budgets, spent a lot of this month on that kind of work.
I just got a long list here of things I wrote down. I want to mention to you. Municipal League conference is this week, and so our 4 management staff will be in and out of that conference throughout the week. I think, Mayor, you're going to attend, right? So there'll be a lot of good subjects, it looks like. So we'll try to pick and choose which one we can be there and cover the office. We may end up closing one day because we're down. We don't have any temporary help at this point, so it'll be one member of the staff and the police. So the police will maintain their duties. Everybody else, Marty, will still be there and things of that nature. But we just may try to limit the damage to Julie. Close the door. Let her change the phone. Okay. Worked with sanitary board a little bit. We sat down and had a couple meetings this month and talked about some future projects. And we've got a few things that we're doing the initial stages on. We'll share them at a later date, I'm sure. We talked about the employment advertisements, audit, so our own audit. I've got a few more documents to get back to the author. Hopefully we can get that thing wrapped up here the next month or two. We'll be done with that. So that's where that stands. The mayor mentioned Board of Parks and Recs. Getting the Board of Parks and Rec, we're trying to figure out what direction we want to take that group. That group wants to take itself. And so as currently constituted, it has 3 members. It's an ordinance, I think in 1940, when it was first created by the Weston City Council. And I think that for all intents and purposes, the state statute allows 7 members. And if we could increase that membership, that'd be helpful for them as they try to create different events and do things of that nature and increase their horsepower. So we're looking at probably an ordinance at some point to kind of reestablish that board and provide an update to that 40 language to kind of give them a little more direction and freedom. Had some conversations about insurance and things like that. So I think those are all things that will go into that conversation and that ordinance. So something to keep your eyes out for there. I'm continuing to work on the RFP for the downtown master plan. I think by the end of this month, Mayor, I'll have something. We'll probably just put on the agenda in September to let the council take a look at it, take one nice crack at it before we release it to everybody. So we're going to try to, I'm writing it to solicit a engineering or planning or both, or architectural, whoever, firm to come in and spend about 180 days looking at our downtown and different the riverfronts and the gateways and saying, give us some kind of direction of what we need to focus on. Hopefully include, empty lots, things that can be redeveloped as part of that analysis. So that's how we're writing it. Should be pretty simple, couple pages, but it takes time. Brian and I are still working on the annexation response, and we really want to get that out back to Mr. Stump, the attorney we've spoken to, and have that initial conversation with Walmart and see where they're at with that. Kind of use it as a test case. Land use authority, that's something that's been on my mind. I have a conversation I've had this month with different people. And all comes back to housing, all comes back to what are we doing with such and such property. And I really just think we've got to find some agency loosely to focus on those issues. Right now, while we have ARPA, I think we have an opportunity there to have a little seed money and start something like this and give them something to give them the focus and have to be able to do something with it. So we've got a few ideas that we'll share down along with that as we bring that up. Then municipal fee. So I've sat down with the mayor, I've sat down with Ward 1 so far, but I want to make a time in 30, 45 minutes with each of the council folks to talk about municipal fees. And so what's triggering that is this first due fire conversation. As I've looked at what our rate should be and kind of try to perform a rate study for that municipal fee calculation, I just think there's a lot of philosophical questions we've got to decide upon about how we want to handle this going forward and what we're trying to accomplish. And so I've put together one of those handy dandy spreadsheets and kind of can make some projections. Say, if we do this is what this will look like. We do this is what this will look like. And so I just want to have that conversation one-on-one with you all, spend a little bit of time with you. We'll take the council as a whole and see kind of what our direction is up being there. I do know that first due fire was something we really, as administration, I think it needs consideration from the governing body before this term is up, for lack of a better word. And I think it's something we've had initial conversations about it. It's left in my hands to kind of come back with a proposal for you all to consider. So that's part of this process. But I think, like I said, I'd like to sit down with you each one and show you the numbers and kind of show you what I'm seeing and give get your take on it, see what sort of direction you kind of push it. Okay. Then I guess the last thing is, Mike didn't get to mention in his report much, but paving. So he's got some things lined up with the paving contractor. I think this month we're going to see some action there. Building machines, they're up at the marketplace this past weekend. So they're in town. So I think we'll see some building action here in the city of Weston before too long. And then we've got some adjusted prices from them because of the asphalt. And what we decided to do, initially we had said that each road was going to get 2 inches of overlay for the most part on our treatments. And so we've talked with the paving contractor, and we think we can go with 1.5 inches, which is pretty typical from where I've been on overlay. So that helps us reduce the cost of paving by 25%. So that allows us to get our existing paving list done, we think, with our projections. Then we're hoping to come back to council and ask for an ARPA allocation to do additional streets. And I think Mike has a list of them. We'll just send that to him, Mike. We won't direct this on much longer, but I'm looking at probably $100,000 what I want to see from ARPA to pay some more streets. We tried to throw a street to a ward, but there were some that needed attention sooner than later. So it's pretty fair, I think, for everyone, but that'll be on a future meeting. We'll throw that list at you, but we may have to do that sooner than later.
I'm assuming that paving is now an allowable expenditure under ARPA. Initially, it was not.
Well, and I think that when I filled out our quarterly report, I elected the
General operating.
there was an option. So the new treasury rule was any allotment under $10 million could just be targeted toward general fund money. Instead of having to run that calculation where we said, hey, we had a shortfall, they just made a simple rule. It's kind of like standard deduction for taxes. If you're under $10 million, you can check that box and all your problems go away. You can use that for general fund expenditures outside of pension maintenance, things of that nature.
Well, Councilor Gump will be very happy.
Yeah.
That's a good explanation for the memory.
So that's what we checked, and I think that essentially got us out of future. But we'll see. That's how we've been doing these other projects too. We talked about them. I mean, you could.
I was asking to double that budget. I'm sorry, was Councilman Curtis. I was asking to double that budget from 100 grand to 200 grand to get more streets paid since we have them here.
Yeah.
And we have, you remember what happened last year with our contractor. We have a working contractor. Well, just a possibility.
My take on it is keep the powder a little bit dry and say, even if you want to do that paving, wait till next year and pay then, because we've got to spread our ARPA costs out here. So we don't, if we expend too much this year, we'll trigger that single audit from the federal government, which will be an additional cost. So I think there's things that other projects that we want to target with ARPA in this year.
Right.
And so,
Right.
Yeah. and we'll be paving next year again. Like, we're going to try to have money in our general fund. So if we have that ARPA money, we want to target it then. I think that'd be my advice at this juncture. And we struggle, Mike will tell you, we're running full board to be able to keep up with the papers, for lack of a better word, we're doing the prep work and stuff like that. So we'll struggle to be up on do these streets, but I just think it'd be helpful to and show the public we're trying.
Sure.
So
I understand.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to approve all of the department reports.
We need to approve all the department reports. Also,
It's been moved and second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Your old business, an update on the 4th Street Bridge.
I haven't heard anything different since last week when we got that last update. I think you all from the city attorney. And so At this point, I'm just gonna let it be what it's gonna be until we hear more. We'll update you as soon as we do. But I guess for the public out there listening, the state is seeking a change order solution and working with the design consultant, and they think that will take a matter of not months, but weeks to get that arranged. And so the contractor will be demobilizing in the sense of pulling off the job site. They're supposedly going to be leaving their equipment in the interim because the demobilization will be such a small time period. And so that's the last one we proceed.
I was on detour.
We do have a lot of concerns on the Mendon, and which you all know, Mendon was only a one-way street to start with. So there is not a lot of traffic, to be honest with you. I'm gonna tell you, you need to thank Bob Pope because he is letting some of the traffic go through there. And I went and spoke with him on that also, but he'll let them go through during the day. But the Mendon is not really holding up the greatest, but if we have these hard rains and stuff like that, you're gonna see some of the blacktop coming up.
All right, I'd like to say something brief. The both guardrails and sidewalk on, there's a walk bridge across the handmade with railings, people utilize it. So it's mobile for pedestrian traffic. There's not, I mean, it's probably about 10, 12 feet, about that's not bad. About it. I think you can put that in for 155,000.
Last month, we had the first reading of ordinance 2022-11, which reconfigured and redefined the roles and purpose of the Weston City Tree Board. This time, I'll entertain a motion to have that second reading.
Before we have that motion, I guess, I think you guys got included on an email today from Robert Weaver requesting reconsideration of the ordinance. I think Brian Schertz thought we just before the meeting. I think a lot of them, I won't say unfounded, but I think unnecessary. His concerns aren't, they're not something not legitimate, they're just unfounded. There's nothing there that really precludes that kind of consideration from happening by our ordinance. But I will say this ordinance isn't something it's not an urgent thing for us to address at this meeting. And I think from a public standpoint, we should encourage people's feedback on our ordinances. And so if you guys would like to entertain a motion to table this till the next regular meeting, allow his input and consideration to be given. And I would put the onus on him to schedule a time, place for to share his thoughts. I'm fine with that. Like I said, I don't think it's necessary. This is something we developed, Brian and I, just to try to get this concern of the ordinance modified where we work. And so in an ideal world, we have a grassroots movement of tree enthusiasts in town that would want this ordinance to work well and also participate in its implementation. And so I think if you can find those people and hear those concerns, that's all the better. So it's up to you all. I just want to throw it up.
I think we appreciate any citizen taking an interest in what we're doing. I think council has had time to review what we sent. We have no further recommendation from our city attorney, so I'll entertain a motion either way. If council wants to move forward with the second reading of the ordinance, or if council wishes to table the ordinance, the reading of the ordinance, to give Mr. Weaver a prescribed time and place to meet about this, that's fine as well.
I think the letter made valid points. I don't think they're realistically doable at this point, but there are things that could be considered and should be considered maybe at some future time. I don't know, maybe give it a chance just to get some ideas. Maybe we might learn something, and pass it second reading at the next meeting. That's my thoughts on it. Might be something we don't recognize as valid as it is, or it may just be things that a city that's be more financially, less problems than we have. There might be some things we might entertain. We've got enough problems of structural and administrative and infrastructure. We got a lot of stuff.
I guess my main point was, it's like section 4 of the ordinance, it says it may be at the direction of council, the responsible to Weston Code Board to study, investigate, counsel, and develop and or update annually and administer a written plan for the care, preservation, pruning, planting, replanting, removal, or disposition of trees and shrubs and parks. I think that the Code Appeals Board has the power to do whatever they like from a tree planting perspective. The onus is on them. That's why we kick the tree board to them, is to say, we want somebody to consider this. I don't think it's necessarily our role or our priority to sit here and develop that plan. We need engaged citizens that want to do that. And so, like I said, he has his concerns about us doing the proper thing. Valid enough, but come be a part of the board and make those decisions, make that plan that can be implemented. That's the prime act, which is we're not saying we won't do those things. It's kind of up to the tree board to figure that out. The Code Appeals Board in this case, to figure out what those steps are at the city. Does that make sense? But I don't think, said if he's got more further concern than that, I'm more willing to give it another month to see what those are. But I think that we've given that liberation to the Code Appeals Board to figure those things out.
I read this second page as if he's kind of pushing in a direction, just how I'm reading, my own opinion, for like a professional on this, as far as for the pruning, like an arborist or whatever he was talking about here. I mean, and that's something, an expense to the city. I mean, if we get to that point, that's how I'm taking this, and I'm not interested in going down that road as we have many other issues to address.
I think if you're the building code official, I think if you're looking at these trees, if you want to, I think he has the discretion. If he wants to use an arborist or wants to use whoever, I think he can call up somebody and say, hey, I have a question about a tree. Can you come help me? That's all within the purview of what this ordinance is supposed to be. It's not some wholesale, we're going to cut down every tree in Weston, and the city is not dictating to anybody what kind of tree can be planted on their own property. So there's no, to me, it's not some kind of totalitarian, you got to do this or else type ordinance. And you always have to, if you don't like it, if you don't like what the building code official tells you about your tree, then you can always appeal it to the appeals board. That's what the appeals are for. I think we kind of wanted to get in this track of becoming a Tree City USA, and they're asking specifically what that means, because I don't even know what that means, but it has to do with protecting and keeping and whatever, and promoting tree growth in your city. And the little blurb the Tree City Board USA or whatever gave us, there's no, and they're not legal authorities, so don't take this as legal authority, but the tree board does not indicate that an arborist needs to be involved in anything tree related. Building code official has his discretion, even arborist if he wants to. The tree board says that a city department can have the authority over the trees. The Tree City people require clear guidance for removing trees. I think this ordinance provides all that. If you want to make the Tree City USA board some kind of legal authority for this, which it's not, but it's in the spirit of what Tree City USA is trying to accomplish. And I think Randy's right. We get down the road, we don't like something about it, we can always change it. So that's my thoughts on it. But at the same time, I think we don't have very many people come in and pound the table and say, hey, let's talk about an ordinance. And you got somebody actually wanting some input. I don't see how it hurts to go either way, to be honest with you. But there's also goodwill in trying to listen and try to adapt to. I know it's one guy out of 3,000, but he's the only one in here of the 3,000 pounding the table about potential problems with the ordinance. So I'm of the opinion either way you're going to be fine, whichever way you decide to go.
So at this time, again, I'll ask council to either entertain having the second reading or tabling the second reading.
I make a motion that we table it.
Is there a second? It's been moved and second. Any discussion? We'll have voting by roll call.
Councilman Sharon Rogers,
Yes.
Councilman Randy Bell,
Yes.
Councilman Kirk Curtis.
Yes.
Motion carries. Under new business, neighborhood yard sale application.
The application should be in your packet. I make a recommendation that you approve it.
This is 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. at 4th Street to North River being blocked off.
North River's not actually going to be blocked off. It's the section that's really essentially blocked off now because of the bridge work. So it's from that section of 4th Street from North River to Bridge work is what they're wanting to do. But once you start walking roads and you're wanting to include all kinds of people, really you got to kind of more of an event as opposed to what I.
I'll move to approve.
One second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the application. Any discussion? We'll have voting by roll call.
Councilman Sharon Rogers,
Yes.
Councilman Randy Bell,
Yes.
Councilman Kirk Curtis.
Yes.
Motion carries. Next, purchase of street sweeper and other equipment related to maintenance.
Essentially, I guess I'll give you an overview of the equipment that we're trying to seek to get this year. And then I think that's the first targeted purchase. As you all know, I think it's a pretty popular event around town, like everyone say it. And new street sweepers right now are at $200,000 to $250,000 range. My opinion on it is that, yeah, it'd be nice to have a new one. It's probably break down less frequently. It's still going to require maintenance on regular intervals. We have rented one, like you guys have been aware, and at our current budget, we're spending $20,000 a year for 2 to 3 times a year. And it seems like every time we sweep the streets, have it for a month, we have a storm the next day, that when we turn it back in and branches and everything else, we land the street, and it looks like we didn't do anything. So I think that moves us down this path of wanting to have street sweeping. So there's that, and I think that we've discussed a little bit about beforehand, but in our budget, we've currently got $25,000 built into it for street sweeping. As far as acquiring one, we do have some maintenance funds in the street sweeping line. But then also, I think we discussed taking from stormwater an additional $25,000 to try to purchase a $50,000 used street sweeper. And I will say that gets us into the 15 to 20-year-old realm of street sweepers. There's no guarantee how long that will last. But if you say a street sweeper's got 10 years, 15 years of life, and you're paying $250,000, we get 5 years out of it. Approximately, we will have essentially done that, fail super streets for $50,000, and maybe we'll be able to equal a bit more out of it if we can take care of it. So I think Mike's got a beat on a couple of used units, some that are much less than $50,000, but I think it's like buying a good used car, you gotta get tires on it and take a look. And that kind of purchase makes it difficult for us to say, hey, we've got a used machine. It's easy for us to purchase, then come back to council and figure out that out. So what I'd like to see us do is authorize us to purchase a used street sweeper up to $50,000 tonight. And we'll do our best to find the right one and find one that's hopefully going to last. And the thought is if we can get a little bit cheaper, we may send it to a dealer or something of that sort to have it look through and things replaced and hopefully make it a better street sweeper than it is. So there's that. But part of that education, that conversation is we need some ability to jet our lines in the storm sewer realm and ability, I think, to pump or suck out the material when they are jetted. We don't have that capability. So right now, Mike and the boys roll out and clean some catch basins. They take their skinny shovel, try to shovel out the dirt, and then it rains again and the catch basin goes back up the dirt. So I think that's tough. It's tough to ask them to continue to do that without the right equipment. So one, we need a jetter to open up some lines that we have, and then two, I think we need some kind of device that can pull the material out. Those aren't cheap. I mean, you're talking $75,000 to $100,000 to probably get you in the ball game with a 10-year-old used unit. So they require lots of maintenance. So that's in the back of my mind. I'm trying to figure out a way, whether it's ARPA or stormwater, but we need that realm. And I think it's a unit that could essentially be double with the sewer department. But, we could help clean some sewers and things of that nature because they don't, correct me if I'm wrong, we really don't have a way to get that material out of the sewer right now, except for the vacuum truck, and it's kind of limited in what it can do in that regard. So there's that. And there's one other piece of equipment. Well, we got the painting machine, but we'll just do that out of the general fund, I think. Yeah, so we talk about just a jetting unit by itself, but I think we'll see. We'll approach that when we find a good unit. But a new standalone trailer jetter is $45,000 to $50,000. So I think if we can find a truck that can suck the stuff out and jet at the same time and make it work, then that's probably a better deal for it. Okay. So I think at this point, I'm just looking for an authorization to identify and purchase a used street sweeper up to $50,000. Yeah.
I'll move to approve the purchase of a street sweeper up to $50,000.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and second. Any discussion?
I just make the caveat to that motion is that we're going to split that 50-50, we think from both the stormwater and the street department fund. Everybody's going to agree with that.
Okay, we'll have voting by roll call.
Councilwoman Sherry Rogers,
Yes.
Councilman Randy Miller,
Yes.
Councilman Kirk Curtis.
Yes.
Motion carries. Next, REAP fiscal year 2023 pilot project sub-grant.
Well, let Marty talk about this a little bit.
I'll lean on Brian to help me with my memory. A couple of weeks ago, Brian and I attended a meeting with the DEP down in Charleston, and it was about federal funds in the form of grants, reimbursement type grants for demolition and removal of dilapidated homes. And we put quite a bit of effort into identifying those structures, not just homes, it could be commercial, but we put quite a bit of effort into identifying them, ranking them, taking pictures and all that kind of stuff. DEP has $10 million in a fund to distribute throughout the state of West Virginia for this cause. And we are eligible here at the city for up to 300,000. So they gave us a lot of hoops to jump through, and a couple of things that we normally wouldn't have to do, like having an architect or an engineer on hand the whole time the building's coming down, that kind of stuff. It'll add a little bit of cost to it, but I think we can still effectively target and demolish some of these buildings. We've already sent out corrective orders, we've condemned buildings and things like that. So we've had the wheels turning here for a while, pretty much since I came aboard a couple months ago. And included in there is a copy of the application that goes down to Charleston to DEP. And it has a quick summary of the houses that how we prioritized them, along with a small breakdown of how we came up to the 300,000. Miraculously, we came up with that figure. I've included a couple of pictures, of course, in the one going down to Charleston, will be nice color pictures and stuff. The application, after speaking with Nate and Brian, they would like ultimately in Charleston to see the mayor sign that application. So we thought we should present it to you as council so you can consider what we're doing and you're aware of what we're trying to do and get your blessing. Did I miss anything, Brian?
No, I think the DEP is sitting there ready. I hate to say giving the money because that's not necessarily the right word. But if you fill out your forms and show a good need for them, then they're ready to hand the money to you. This is a startup type program, and it was the legislature or governor, whoever wanted the proverbial $1 trillion to tear houses down. But they got 10 million, and they're going to try to show what good we can do with $10 million. That way, next year, in 2 years or 5 years, you get more than $10 million for your state. And so, the whole concept, they kind of focused on. They didn't specifically say, but the DEP was kind of nudging everybody towards working on your gateways, stuff that looks bad when you first come into your town. And I don't think that's going to be a make or break deal. I think they're going to give you the money anyway. But if we can find gateway stuff or stuff that's clearly visible from your main roads, I think that's carried a lot more weight with DEP than something 5 streets over buried in the corner behind the brush. So I think we get after it and get this thing filled out and get that money, see what we can do with it.
My understanding, it's also a reimbursement program, right?
Yeah.
And I think there was some, I didn't get to attend the meeting, but there was some motivation from their side to see us control the properties or own the properties for demolition. Is that?
Their suggestion was that the best case scenario for us is if we have control of the property through whatever course. That way we're in complete control.
I think that's part of our, he's identified, he used Oak Hill, we'll give him some credit, right? We used
Kind of a mixture of Oak Hill and Elkins.
Oak Hill, Elkins, developed this rubric, just kind of developed the priority houses to come down, so they can say we were picking on them or anything like that. And, but I think part of that metric, that's the first step, identifying them, but then we've got to identify the ones that we can essentially control, get those down. I think that would be kind of help people a priority, the next priority level develop. So
You feel comfortable that the ones listed will probably not be an issue?
I will say that I don't think we're necessarily be held to this list. I think this is what we're showing that we have need. Is that fair, Marty?
Yeah.
And I think at that point, we're going to show plenty of need to get these things down. And as we work through this, from what I understand, is we take a house down, we send them, we follow their steps, we pay for it, and then we send them the reimbursement request to get that money back.
Hopefully the reimbursements are not a time lengthy process. They said they would be cutting checks twice a month.
That's my anticipation.
I'll entertain a motion from council to accept the application.
I'll move to accept the application.
I'll second.
It's been moved and second to submit the application for 300,000. Any discussion? Voting by roll call.
Councilwoman Sherry Rogers,
Yes.
Councilman Randy Bowles,
Yes.
Councilman Kurt Curtis.
Yes.
Motion carries. Next, we have the Honorable Steve Moneypenny, who's here to talk to us about the 911 addressing.
Yeah, say everything good up here. I was like a student, I was a little short.
You
hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, first of all, I have maps, you guys like them. 7 or 8, and I still want to do it myself. Hopefully these help.
Okay.
Thanks to the rain.
Thank you, Steve. Thanks for being here. Thanks for your patience.
Oh, So where we're at here is, without looking at the map, who knows where South Center Avenue is? Okay, awesome. More people than I have seen so far. So there is one home, one active address, as I will call it, on South Center Avenue. And there is a problem with that address. It's on the right-hand side of the road, and it's an odd number. We had first identified this about 10 or 11 years ago. The house was owned by an elderly person, and our office felt that it was not worth going to the hassle of having to change your address. It was quickly sold, moved into by Courtney Weaver, now Mrs. Solberg, and they have recently moved out of the town. So I always felt that the addressing office was to leave no negative impact on anyone. That's kind of been one of my goals. Just, you know, if something needed changed, usually time was our friend. If it wasn't an emergency, there was no sense in forcing everyone to change that. It usually works a lot better. It is in our agreement with the city that we will get the city's permission before we change anything drastic in the city. I do feel that this is drastic. I also try to let council and everyone else know before we change any singular address in the city. So I've got a couple of options here. First, the first big option is I would like for South Center Avenue. It is one block-ish with one address that's active and 2 parcels on. Both of those parcels are accessed by another street in some way or form. So
What would the street?
it will become Center Avenue. A continuation of what it is throughout the rest of the city. There are a number of reasons because of this. For one, it makes it a different segment if you're driving. So instead of going from South Main Avenue, you go through South Main, South Center, Center. It really takes your GPS longer. If your GPS reads correctly, it takes it longer to say that than it does to drive through it. The other issue that we have with that is obviously the state's not going to sign it. It wants to put up a sign for. The other, how you guys want to go about that, and what's legally required for the removal of a road name like that outside this or inside the city, it's not part of the county. I'm not sure of. For the county, I know that we can do that with a motion stuff of the county commission. If you don't want to do that or want to go about it in a longer method, I also have gave dated email option, which I was typing fast and typed to South Center. So if you're reading the email that there, please take the south out of the 2. I don't like road ranges that short and numbers that low because that doesn't give us any space in. My preference would be to change the address of the house to 11 Arnold Street immediately. Yes. And then notify Mr. Weaver, who is the realtor, so that any paperwork done on those contracts and stuff makes it a completely seamless process for him.
The postal service,
Yes, I notify them, and there is no, we're not being, should not be any mail being delivered there. The mail forward that Courtney and Joseph have done to their place J. Blue will just keep going as it is. Any new mail will not be allowed to be started at that. So once their forward drops off, that address will drop off. It'll also be more helpful that way if something that doesn't accidentally get either forward or not. I would definitely like anybody else's perspective on this. If there's anything. We've talked about doing this a number of times in my office, with Mr. Rowland, Mr. Gum, and see this. That's not good. So with your permission, I'll go ahead and change it to our own street address, which is, we also spoke with EMS, and that's where they're going to go. I don't think Joshua Park any cruisers down there on South Center Avenue, what, like, Joseph and Courtney decided to come back and have a wrestling match, and somebody, you guys got called. You pull up on Arnold Street to go up there, right? It's a nice place where nobody's had any problems for years. That's what.
We used to go there a lot.
Really?
Different sheds, some
Oh,
That's how I knew where it was.
yeah.
so your recommendation then
Is to change the address immediately and hopefully remove South Center Avenue. So, that will make it go. But right now it's only from Willow Street to the walk. That will make it easier for GPS and stuff like that. It'll take a couple of weeks to have on the state website. Which is where a lot of GPS is pulled from. Part of Homeland Security. State address and system website, which is correct.
Generally speaking, I think it's a good idea. State code gives cities the power to name and rename streets. You have to consult with DOH and postal authorities and whatnot to make sure everybody's on the same page and everybody gets the address changed. Does it require an ordinance? I'm not convinced it does. There was at least 3 situations where an ordinance is required that might fit this situation. Number 1, providing for a public improvement. I'm not convinced it falls under that. Relating to planning or zoning, I'm not convinced it falls under that. We're laying out or vacating a public street. We're not laying one out because it's already there. We're not vacating it because we're not giving it away or doing something else. I don't think it applies there. The only major issue is it's still going to be Route 19. I mean, it's still going to be a state road regardless of what we name it.
Yeah, we could call it Candyland Drive.
Sure.
A block, and it's not going to change what the front of the highway does.
Yeah. And the only thing I'm concerned is the DOH saying, no, you can't change our road name. But we're already calling Center Avenue.
Actually, the Department of Highways pretty much let me name everything. Like, here's our spreadsheet. Put in there what you have, because, I control the road names for the addresses for that part. They're like, put it in, spell it the way you want it, because we do have some misspelled names throughout the county. For instance, there's a cemetery with an A, it's CENETARY in Orlando. They didn't want, no one wanted that changed, but that's the way it's always been. And no one on earth that I have found can tell me how you spell Isaacs, the one out off of Camden. It's either ISSACS or ISAACS, and it's, my fiance does a lot of history and genealogy that goes back to about 1750, either way. So we just kind of go with whatever they tell us at the time, and I have it in my database in both ways, so if somebody search it, we can find some roads in both directions. So I can't find any reason not to, because that's what I always do, try and make this affect, future people.
And looking at the map here, I see there on the corner of Arnold and what is now South Center, the Courtney Weaver tract, is that the one that's going to be now 211
Yes,
Arnold?
yes,
Okay.
number 11 will become.
Okay, and across the way to Melvin and Mary James, what address is that?
It doesn't have an address. The database, which will go back everything from the 1990 record.
So there wasn't anyone in trouble. And again, same question. The Baker Company.
Which property are we referencing?
It's kind of catty corner from Courtney Weaver property to the left. Behind the bar.
Across the street?
Yeah, if you see
Would
a
that
small
not
roof,
be, I mean, I would think would be attached to part of the Main Street property.
that's what I believe as well.
So just to argue, why is there delineation between the two Main Street properties? Just, I don't know the answer.
What's that alley name going down back in there to the parking lot
To my knowledge, it has been
between James and Darby?
I don't believe it has a name, but on up the hill, they call it Orchard Street.
Yeah.
I think that
I
was-
just never did see a name on it, so I didn't know. I got some, are we done with the discussion?
Two more questions and yeah.
Not quite.
Not quite, but I got something I'd like to ask in a moment.
And
You know, and you know.
Let's take a vote then.
I got a vote on that.
He has two more
I
questions.
just got two more. The Baker Company, is that a Main Street address? Okay, then the Coons up there, they would get a Reservoir Street.
Seemed like such a good idea, I didn't think we'd have to vote.
So why, and I don't care, what the ones to the right of Courtney Weaver, why are they not on?
Because you can't get there, so you have to go up the park.
Okay, could be.
And the reason that the Courtney's house, as we all know, things change over time. They didn't used to have a carport in front of their house, and at that time, the steps went down. So, I don't know why they call it that.
Okay, so I'll entertain a motion to change 11 South Center Avenue to 211 Arnold Street and remove South Center Avenue as a street, correct?
I'll move to approve that. Oh, thank you, Kurt.
Will you second that?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and second. Any discussion? Voting by roll call.
Councilwoman Sherry Rogers,
Yes.
Councilman Rizzo,
Yes.
Councilman Kirk Curtis.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you, Steve.
Can I veer from the agenda for 30 seconds?
Steve, would that take-
Briefly. Briefly.
All right, I think Nate's been in discussion with this. Circuit, or the city clerk's been in discussion with this, I've been in discussion. And they've all thrown it back to you. You can check on this and get back with us later. Not us, just me. Coons Edition, Coons Drive.
Oh, my God.
Uh-huh.
That's something I have to be sitting in front of a computer to answer because I can't keep.
I know.
track of my head.
But I've got apartments on Coons Drive, lived up in there all my life. But the case being, the state put new signs up.
I know.
And the state put up a sign on Coons Edition that says Coons Drive.
There's a Coots and a Kuntz and a K.
They're both spelled the same.
No, there's one that's supposed to have an S and the other one is supposed to have a C.
Both of them spelled the same in my world, but anyway. Coons Drive, they've now got a sign up right there at the Mount Emerald that says Coons Street. There's never been a Coons Street, but they said that you all said there was, so. We can sit, try to
I'll
get,
print out what I have.
yeah, see what you got and see what we can figure out, because the people that live on Coons Drive are having a hard time getting their packages from UPS, from FedEx, because they keep taking them to the street over. It says Coons Drive, but it's not Coons Drive.
And from where we have had to have address change and stuff up there, I've done everything I could to make sure it does not duplicate the grandfather. But I try to keep the numbers.
Yeah, where Coons Street ever come from? It's never been that from 50 years of my life. I'm
You're
almost
a young man now, sir. See, my aunt who just passed away, was about 90, went to high school with two twins, and that was their name. That road used to be a loop that went up to their house. At some point, development happened. And they won't-
Yeah, I know where it moved
Instead of
around.
one, yeah, so like their house.
I own a house there, 2 houses there, and I've lived there. It's always been Coons Drive, but the sign says Coons Street. Like I said, the people live in my house now, they're always complaining to me about GPS and stuff because of signs.
Stupid question. Do they have the address correctly posted?
Hmm.
Do they have the address well posted?
Yeah, it's on the front of the house, but it's not on Coons Street, it's
I
on
have problems
Coons
with
Drive.
GPS guys leaving my stuff out there. And leaving things halfway on the porch, on the banister, and even though there's a nice big sunset.
Ready to get out of this conversation. I'm not getting anywhere.
I will let you, I'll look into that and I'll let you know.
Yeah, let me know. I appreciate
See
it.
what we find out.
Appreciate you coming. Steve.
Well, thank you.
Next, we have consideration of a resolution affirming the city of Weston commitment to support West Virginia veterans. We did that last. Yeah.
I'd be happy to read it for you. Get this going. I'll take mine off. It's a resolution reaffirming the city of Weston's commitment to support West Virginia veterans, veteran services. Whereas the city has a deep appreciation and respect for our nation's military members and veterans, and whereas the city of Weston recognizes the need for consistently adequate and readily available health and medical services for West Virginia's estimated 70,000 veterans. And whereas the city of Weston has serious concerns regarding the United States Department of Veterans Affairs recommendations submitted to the Asset Infrastructure Review Committee and published in the Federal Register document number 2022-05256, which if accepted and implemented would implement inpatient medical, surgical, medical health, emergency room care at 3 of West Virginia's VA medical centers, including the Lewis A. Johnson VA Center of Clarksburg, West Virginia. Whereas the city of Weston recognizes the healthcare providers in West Virginia are at their breaking point and believe that adding an estimated 70,000 patients into the already understaffed and overwhelmed rural healthcare system would be disastrous. And whereas the city of Weston recognizes that the recommendations listed for the Federal Register document hashtag 2022-05256 are in an effort to consolidate VA services in metropolitan areas. However, the city believes it should not be done at the expense of rural Americans who put their lives on the line and give immeasurable sacrifices for our country. And the VA should not abdicate for its responsibility to care for these men and women regardless of where in this great nation they reside. So therefore it be resolved by the city of Weston that the city of Weston hereby publicly affirms unwavering support for the West Virginia veterans. Therefore, the city of Weston hereby declares its belief that all current VA medical centers in West Virginia should remain open with all current operational capabilities, and asserts as a public notice its opposition to the United States Department of Veterans Affairs recommendation laid out in the Federal Register document number 2022-05256. The city of Weston will support all appropriate state and community efforts to deter this action from the proceeding.
Thank you very much.
End of quote. Next line.
Would council like to take action by entering a motion in support of this resolution?
I'll move to approve the resolution.
Okay, it's been moved and second. Any discussion? Voting by roll call.
Sharon Rogers.
Yes.
Councilman Lee
Yes.
Councilman Curtis.
Okay, motion carries. Oh.
Particular agency we send that resolution to, is that you?
It was brought to my attention by Lucy and Weston Global. I don't know who the county sent that to. Not sure, but okay, next we have sick donation policy for employees.
You all should have a copy in your packet of a draft donation sick and vacation time policy. So the impetus for this policy change for our handbook is to allow, we've currently got one employee who's has a sick family member who goes up to work every day, and if later than he can, but the care of his family member led him to use all of his time. And I think in times past here at the city, we had this policy, the one you're seeing before you, scratch mark through 308. This is from the previous handbook that we had here at the city, where this policy did exist. So I'd like to reinstitute it if that's will of council. Sick time is not time that is has any kind of monetary benefit to the employee. I took the previous policy, scratched out a couple parts that I think were real clear, and then I just made that that third paragraph, I added that different color. But, just to make it clear that any time donated from an employee would be deducted same rate from their own bank. Thank you to the other employee. This will be done strictly on a voluntary basis. If we know pressure or anything like that, it's something that the employee would have to come to the city manager, request that donation be made.
And so you have struck the line here
Yeah,
about that they have to be off for 2 times a week, so they really don't have to miss.
that's why I didn't see the point of
Right.
that.
I agree.
Yeah. Thought it was fair enough to say employee. It's even difficult, right, if you say, well, I'm gonna run out of time, you've got to have a balance of 0. At that point, it's kind of late in the game, right? But I think we could use our best judgment to make sure that employees not storing up weeks upon weeks of sick time for something that hasn't occurred, right? Something we would use as needed.
So the employee receiving the 40 hours of sick time, if someone's donated to that employee, can they only receive up to 40 hours, or can they receive 40 hours from 3 different employees if need be, or that's the only part I've seen it wasn't in there.
Okay.
It's definitely a good idea.
Yeah.
Does he need a approval on that tonight?
I think it'd be
With
nice to get
changes.
this wrapped up, yeah. If you guys would be okay with it.
Move to approve donation of sick and vacation time.
So we're not, sorry, for Teddy, we're not limiting the amount of time they can receive for 40 hours. We're just saying we're limiting the person, the donor, to 40 hours. Until we-
Sure,
Further
as long as
approval.
you approve that,
Okay.
as long as you agree with that, but I think it's, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we've given every employee the ability to give, it looks like 80 hours per year. 40 with my approval, 40 with council. approval. We'll leave it in short with council approval.
I just had a question with the receiver. But if the receiver needed 160 hours,
I don't see
it's
that.
unlimited as long as all the employees agree to give them 40 hours apiece. Whatever.
More than one person. Yes.
To the same
That's
person.
what-
Yeah.
yes,
I'm not
that's
gonna
what
limit
they
it.
mean.
I'll say there shall be no limit to the receiver as to the number of hours. required by the nation.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved in second. Any discussion? Voting by roll call.
Councilwoman Sherry Rogers,
Yes.
Councilman Randy Bowen,
Yes.
Councilman Herb Curtis.
Motion carries. Do you need the donated leave forms or do you have those?
You've got something you can share, I don't have anything.
And now we have on the agenda street department personnel. Are
Yeah.
you still requesting
I am. Should be
executive
brief.
session to discuss personnel?
5 minutes.
Is there a motion to enter executive session?
I'll move you.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to enter executive session. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, I might stick to the chair.
Hey, I'm doing great, thanks you.
Oh, you're.
They are.
Just now, that's what we heard. I'm bet you. That's makes it so off. So, here we go. Straight lines. There it says, measures from front to front along the streets.
Randy does that.
Randy's the one that told me I wasn't allowed to ask to do good. Yes, you're not allowed that to the agenda.
Okay, is there a motion to exit executive session?
I'll move to exit executive session.
Okay, it's been moved in second. All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Motion carries. We're down to reports of city council.
Since Mr. Nicholson just got here, can you ask him if he has anything?
Sure.
You just tell me that, Mr. Nicholson. It's nice to see you this evening. Yeah, it's nice
Hi.
to see you. And I don't think that you,
I forgot, I was saying this next Monday, I
Oh.
was from my wall, I seen all the cars, I said, oh, damn, I guess. But all the guys know that I'm gonna get on grinning right now.
well, you know, we changed the public comment to the beginning of the meeting, and since you just came, I'll give you my time. And you can speak if you have something that you want to add.
I want to thank the guys and the people involved. They're saying that what they got done at the Mill Street part of that there. I just don't want to forget it, don't go back.
Okay.
They should be down there more. Well, I did have a neighbor ask me, when are we gonna do the street, how we gonna do it?
Keith Court.
Each course.
Keith Court.
We got people. Is it okay?
Yep.
We got people coming here this week. We're going through that, and just as soon as we get an update on it, I will let you know, okay?
Okay, but one of those is Catherine Raleigh, and she lives by herself too, but she's one of it's gonna be over neighbors who have been lost in Boston, take 2 or 3 days to do it.
We'll mill
She
first,
wants everybody to get their car in and out of the garage.
we'll mill first, and then we'll come back in blacktop. It shouldn't take very long. But I'll keep, we're gonna mill first, and then we're gonna come back in and blacktop soon. I'll keep you
That's
posted.
fine. I just want to make sure we get on about 3 inches of that blacktop on there.
Okay, I got you.
Put down 2.5 inches.
There goes that itch back.
Talking sidewalks already, you know what I mean? But you know, we didn't discuss all this, let's just discuss it now. We know what we want to talk about.
Yes, we do.
Thank you, Bob. It's good to see you.
And I enjoyed having the meeting down there with Shirley on the street the other night. We discussed some good things down there too, and I'm sure she's taking care of that. So.
We did. We did. That was good. We had a nice turnout, didn't we, Bob?
But anybody has any questions, please, to ground me or close. I will say one more thing though.
Okay.
I hate to do this, but that house right next door to me, they ain't caused no trouble or nothing, but just the idea of the principle of it. There's about, I don't know how many people work in this place, but everyone who parks their cars around the field, around the house, they get their work, 7:30, 4 away. And their clients start coming in and say 8:30 or 9 o'clock. And they have all the parking they need, and they can park their car
front or Will Street or the other side of town or somewhere. And put up signs that are parking only for whatever you're describing to people. I don't know what they are, but as far as I know, they're all super good people, but they have no place to park. So they park in front of my house, smoke all their cigarettes, and took them out the sidewalk and the road and right on. But that's brainwashing the way when you come by. It's just, the people working there, I'm sure, are all good people. But they look out for themselves just like me and everybody else there. But no one else will look down there. I don't know. But they just, I don't know how to describe it. There's no parking, as you all know, for anything around. So they need parking space. Got any extra buildings or extra watch and tear down middle of 5-story parking shed.
So,
I think there should be something down there. Like I told you, I said, there's no one knocked on my door before they moved in and said, hey, people, don't move this in here. Like to let you know, get your thoughts about it, but no one ever knocked or no one said nothing of that for sold. Moving in, and kind of what was coming. The whole street's that way, it's just not very good. Just like the White House on the corner. I've been in the couple people, when they're knocked on this door, they to check in. No sign says come in this time, but then we have one sign on the front porch. Say this. It's gonna get better, I know. I got faith in you all, so just keep on trucking.
Thank you, Bob.
thanks, Bob. I would like to thank you for helping me co-host my community chat down there.
I had a good time.
Thank you.
That's my report. Okay,
Your
Ward
turn.
2.
In this day and age, I guess memes are pretty popular, right? So we got the meme for the month of August. We got Tiger Woods standing there with his back teeth. You got John Daly standing over here, right? And I'm going to put Ward 1, Ward 3, Ward 4 on the back of Tiger Woods, and Ward 2 block party in front of John Daly. It's coming.
Okay, we have a date yet?
No. Big plans need big. Wait,
Okay.
all microphone even on, that's okay.
Word 4.
Not much either. I'm still needing to schedule my meeting as well. Some- Sure. That'd be some Sonic Temple or maybe a conflict of interest, but I don't have it. So I need to schedule mine as well, and everything's pretty quiet. For Ward 4.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Motion carried. Meeting adjourned.
Very good.
Do that one. Or the, check,
Right here, where the city of Weston. Steps go up.
I apologize. I went to,
Yes.
Kim and I went down to Friday for last year. Now we went down to celebrate. I was excited to see her. We never get to see her.
Oh,
Yeah,
I'm
it's
so good. I got you. Yeah,
She's out there now. Got stuff out there. And make sure all these guys are sure.
different.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah.
You trying to beat me in attendance?
City work, let's say that's controversial
Come out.
I'm like, you should have been there. Really pulled up on the sidewalk. Like, I'm like,